Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Lifelong Learning. We are restarting up this bitch. We're back in here. Good to see you guys. I'm excited to start it. Without further ado, let's dive in. This is Lifelong Learning, the podcast where we take lessons from psychology, philosophy, self development, and have conversations, figuring out how to live a more intentional, a more meaningful, and ultimately a more happy life. So, without further ado, let's talk about today's topic, which is anxiety. All right. And anxiety is it's kind of this difficult thing to describe, to label, to put into words, but I would say it's this feeling of worry, this feeling of like dread or worry kind of gnawing at the back of your mind. Maybe it's at the forefront of your mind, maybe it's at the back of your mind. Wherever it is, it's this feeling of worry, usually about the future. All right? And I think this is something very normal. I think it's something most people, if not all of us, feel at some point in our lives. And I've definitely dealt with anxiety. A few months ago, so right now I'm working, I have an internship for the next 4 months, like a 9 to 5 job. But when I was first applying to jobs, it was really anxiety inducing, or at least my perception of it was anxiety inducing. It was hard, and I always was thinking, it was really difficult. I was applying to, say, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 jobs, right? And I was hearing back from maybe one or two or three of them. I think at the end of it, I ended up applying to over 120 positions and heard back from 4 or 5 companies, and then had 4 or 5 interviews. And by the end of it, I got the job at 2 places and I chose one. So it was nerve-wracking, right? From 120 applications, reading so many descriptions, spending hours upon hours upon hours every week searching for these jobs. And it makes you just feel really demoralizing because you just see no results, right? Your inputs are not tied to your outputs. It fucking sucks. But when I was doing this process of applying to jobs, one of the worst things was the anxiety I felt. I had this constant worry at the back of my mind and at the forefront of my mind, but I was constantly worrying about future problems that I didn't have. I used to ask myself, and get all worked up over the feelings, like what it would feel like to not have a job while all my other friends did, right? Because that happens. I had friends who they couldn't get a job, they couldn't get an internship. And I was so worked up and worried about how would it feel like, how other people perceived me and looked at me and said, oh wow, that guy didn't get the job. Or how my parents would react if they saw that I couldn't get a job or this thing and all my other friends did, right? And then they would say, oh, Armand, this social media bullshit that you've been working on for the past few years, see, it leads to nothing, right? And I'm not saying that. It definitely is leading to something, and it's pursuing social media over the past few years has been amazing. But I was so worked up and so worried that this anxiety, this feeling of dread, this worry for the future, that what if things go wrong, it was constantly gnawing at me 24/7 and really destroying the quality of my life. I mean, it was at the back of my mind all day, every day, interrupting my workouts. It was interrupting my ability to sleep. It was destroying my mental clarity and ultimately really fucking making the quality of my thoughts so goddamn awful. It was just fucking terrible. I really felt like I was slipping. Like, seriously. And you know what? I believe this. The quality of our life is dependent on the quality of our thoughts. And if our thoughts are shitty, our life is going to be shitty. Simple as that. So, how do we overcome this? How do we overcome anxiety and this feeling of dread? Because eventually, you know what? For me, the thing that quelled that anxiety, personally, was simply just getting a position. Right? I used to tell myself, be very stoic about it in terms of the capital S. Realize that it's in my control how many applications I apply to, but what's not in my control is who gets back to me. What's not in my control is how employers see me. What's not in my control is if I get the job or not. What's in my control is simply the amount of applications I send in. That's it. So I focus on that, number one, right? But this is number two, and this is where I really want to bring us to. I think the first step towards resolving anxiety is really getting clear about the language that we use. All right? Because the language that we use to describe our world shapes our perception. And our perception of the world is our little reality, right? This is one of my favorite quotes, and I'm going to say it once more. This is one of my favorite fucking quotes, so listen up. It is not things that upset us, but our judgment of things. And that's from one of the greatest Stoics, Epictetus. Alright? We must realize that our thoughts do not represent reality. I'm going to say that once more. Our thoughts do not represent reality. They are mere constructions of reality, all right? We assign value judgments such as good or bad to external events, right? When in reality, these things are not good or bad in of themselves, but we say they're good or bad according to the story we tell ourselves and the language we use to describe them. So let's go at a little example over here, okay? You just lost your job. Let's imagine that. You lost your job. You worry about how you're going to pay your bills. You worry about how you're going to feed your family. You worry about you won't be able to provide for your family, that, you won't be able to pay for your kids' schooling and your car payments, and how you're going to pay for the house, and, eventually your partner is going to leave you. You'll lose the house. You'll never see your kids again, and you're going to die broken alone forever because you lost your job right now. That's what's going on in your brain. Seems kind of silly, doesn't it? When I'm saying it over here, it kind of seems silly how losing your job leads to you dying broke and alone for the rest of your life. That doesn't really make sense, right? It's not very logical. Well, here's the thing. We catastrophize. We over-exaggerate our lives, and we add to our own anxiety, or we add to our own problems by piling on all of this bullshit causal events that might happen that probably won't. And we are irrational because we're emotional creatures. Humans are emotional. I'm not saying we should get rid of our emotions. No. But we must learn to overcome them. We must learn to overcome this feeling of anxiety or dread or worry because it does not serve us. All right. You say to yourself, back to this losing your job example, you might say to yourself, man, losing this job is fucking awful. It is the worst thing that could ever happen to me, and it is catastrophic. Most people would think that. Here's the reality. That's not true. You just lost your job. That's it. You don't need to add unnecessary weight by saying, this is the worst thing ever. Woe is me. This world is unfair. Fuck this entire system. Fuck the world. All this shit is awful. We should all get rid of it. Woe is me. Feel sorry for me. This is all because of my mother, my father, or all this shit. No. You don't need to make your life worse. Stop complaining about the problem you're facing and making your life worse. Because I'm not saying stop complaining because you're a bitch or whatever. No. I'm saying stop complaining because you are literally hurting yourself by complaining. You are hurting yourself and making your life more difficult. Do you want to do that? No. So, don't catastrophize. This is a word, to catastrophize. I don't even think this is a real word, but it's kind of a phenomenon or something coined by Aaron Beck, who is the founder of cognitive behavioral therapy, one of the most successful ways of relieving and approaching depression and anxiety. Cognitive behavioral therapy, also known as CBT. Very, very good. Highly recommend. Dive into it if you're interested in that world. But catastrophizing is a phenomenon in which humans make external events in their lives into catastrophes by adding unnecessary chains of events, unnecessary language, and ultimately bullshit. It's easy to catastrophize. It's easy to say, I lost my job and now I'm going to die alone and broke forever. It's easy to say, I'm overweight right now, thus I'll be overweight for the rest of my life, and I'll never find a partner, and I'll never be happy, and I'll never have kids, and I'll never have a life I like, and all that shit. It's easy to catastrophize and make our lives into some beautiful Greek tragedy. Because it kind of feels good. It makes us feel, oh, woe is me, I'm not responsible, the world is flawed, and I'm perfect, and I'm the victim. But let me tell you something, the victim mentality never helps anyone. What does it do? Tell me. Like, I want you to seriously sit down and journal, maybe think in your mind, meditate on it. What does the victim mentality help you accomplish? It makes you feel sorry for yourself. It makes you upset and sad. And you don't change anything about your life because you don't believe you have agency. Is that really conducive to growth? Is that conducive to becoming the type of person you want to be? Is that conducive to a happy life? No. So don't be a victim. Don't unnecessarily catastrophize. Now, that is the first step. Realizing catastrophization, that's the understanding of anxiety and how we make our lives worse by adding unnecessary value judgments and weights. Now, here's how to stop falling prey to it. This is my kind of 4-step, 5-step approach about relieving anxiety. Number 1, describe the event or the thing that's going on in the most plain language possible. Once again, describe the event in the most plain language possible, okay? Don't over-exaggerate. Don't unnecessarily embellish. Be concise and as objective as possible. Did you lose your job? Okay, you lost your job. That's it. That's it. You lost your job. Not that you'll die alone. You lost your job. That's objective reality. This is one of my favorite quotes. It's from Marcus Aurelius, in my opinion, one of the greatest men or people who ever lived, one of the greatest emperors of Rome, and one of the wisest people. He wrote Meditations, literally like the Bible of Stoicism and probably self-development. Is one of the books that changed my life. Here's the quote from Marcus Aurelius. Indeed, nothing is so conducive towards greatness of mind as our ability to examine events rationally and view them realistically by stripping them down to their essential characteristics. What does Marcus mean here? He means be concise and plain with your language. Do not catastrophize. Do not be so extravagant in your words and your description. Just say things in as few words and as objectively as possible. Number 2, this is one of my favorites. Look for what lessons or positive benefits you can obtain from this external event, okay? Find the silver lining. That's basically what this is. Find the silver lining, okay? Back to losing your job. Say you lost your job. Great, now you can find a better one. This sounds very reminiscent of someone like Jocko Willink, right? Lost your job? Great. Find a better one. Maybe you didn't like your old job. Maybe you loved it. Okay, cool. Now you know what you like and you're going to find something similar. Or maybe you really didn't like your job and you actually hated it. And now you have the opportunity. You have this opportunity. The universe has pushed you in a direction to say, okay, go find a better job that you like. Follow that natural curiosity. Follow your intuition. Maybe you could do something a little bit more interesting. Or do a complete career pivot. Find the silver lining so you could get out of that doom and gloom mindset and into that growth mindset. Alright? That's what we're trying to do here. Find the silver lining so we can say, okay, what lessons did I learn from this job? Maybe the reason you got fired was because you weren't showing up on time. That's a lesson to learn, right? You gotta say, oh shit, I gotta take more responsibility and show up on time and be a good fucking worker. Maybe that's a lesson you learned. Or maybe the silver lining is, you know what, man, I really didn't like that job and I want to do something that I'm really passionate about and I think I could do. Now you have that opportunity. The universe has given you this blessing. It has pushed you in the right direction and now giving you this opportunity to go pursue the things you love. So that's number 2. Find the lessons or positive benefits. All right. Number 3. This is one of my favorites and it's something I do very, very often. ask yourself, what would someone I admire do in this situation? Marcus Aurelius himself, one of the greatest men of all time, often wondered what his favorite philosophers and idyllic men, such as Seneca, Epictetus, or his adoptive father Lucius, would do in the situations he confronted. By comparing his present self, who he was, with his ideal self, or his mentor, he was able to figure out a rational course of action. He was able to say, okay, what would someone I look up to do in this situation? I frame this question usually as, what would my ideal self do in this situation? Because we know what our ideal selves would do. You know, the funny thing is in life, most of us know what we need to do to be happy. We're just not willing to take the steps to get there. That's the truth. You like it? Great. You don't like it? Too bad. You probably know what you need to do. The same applies to you. Ask what your higher self would do. What would that ideal person that you look up to do? All right? If you lost your job, or if you're, right, say, I really do look up to Marcus Aurelius, right? If Marcus Aurelius lost his job as Emperor of Rome, I doubt he would cry and be a victim and eat a fuck ton of chocolate. I don't even know if they had that good chocolate back in the day of ancient Rome. Probably not. I doubt he would do that. I don't think he would cry and wallow. I think Marcus Aurelius would say, okay, why did I lose my job? He would reflect. He would say, what can I do now? And he would look and say, you know, I love philosophy and I love teaching people. I'm going to become a philosopher. I'm going to become a lecturer. I'm going to become a teacher. And I would say, okay, if that's what Marcus would do and I look up to him, what would I do? Oh, I would follow that intuition, follow that guy, that curiosity within me that compels me to do whatever it is I want to do. So ask yourself, what would your ideal self do? You know, after you describe the event in the very plain language, after you figure out what positives or lessons or benefits you get from this experience, ask yourself, what do I do now? And answer that question by asking, what would someone I admire do? What would my highest self do? All right. And number 4, this is incredibly important in a lesson I've learned from Alex Hormozy recently. What skills or virtues do I have that I could employ? Everyone has conquered challenges. Maybe it's losing 5 pounds, maybe it's beating cancer. But whatever it is, you've conquered challenges in your past. What did you do then that was successful? Were you courageous? Were you brave? Were you exhibiting some virtue such as intellect or, kindness or generosity? What kind of skills do you have? And you do have skills because everyone has skills. What kind of tools or virtues or lessons could you employ from your past that can be applied now? So for example, when I was going through all that shit, applying to jobs, I asked myself, okay, what skills do I have? What benefits, what virtues do I have in my arsenal that can make me a better applicant or can make me look better? And I said, oh, I am a very creative person, right? I should show off that work because I know people respect that. People respect people who work hard at things. So let me show these people what I work hard at. I spent time, sat down, made a portfolio, and I'm going to tell you, that portfolio set me aside from all the other people. Right? Every interview that I was in, they all mentioned, hey Armand, your portfolio was really good. Nice. Well done. Good shit. Because that's the thing. That's a virtue I had at that time, being a creative, being someone who took initiative. And I said, I'm going to use this tool, the skill that I have, to make myself stand out and to take a better course of action. And you have that too. Maybe you're really generous and you're very kind, and because of that you find it very easy to talk to people and you love helping others. Great. Now whatever knowledge or tool or skill that you have, such as generosity, you can apply that to that new thing you want to go into, right? So maybe what you really want to do is help people. You want to help people lose weight, and because you're very generous, you're the one who's giving free courses and free insights or free lectures, and that's fucking great. And now what you're doing is you're generating all these leads, people who trust in you, you're building authority in your personal brand. Boom. We all have conquered shit in the past, and you've learned lessons from that. Go into your past, see what you've learned, apply it towards the actions that you're taking. And thus concludes my step process, my 4-step process, you know. And I want to say this, overcoming anxiety is not easy. And even though you just listened to this for about 20 minutes and you're probably thinking, oh, okay, wow, this is really interesting. It's not going to you're not going to wake up one day and be like, oh, I'm never anxious ever again. I still deal with anxiety and feelings of dread and worry. But with these tools, with these skills, you will be able to better overcome them. Once again, overcoming anxiety is not easy, but it is possible. And trust me, once you start to be more intentional and very careful with your language, describing events in the most plain language possible, looking at what lessons or benefits or silver linings you can find, asking what your ideal self or someone you admire would do in your situation, and then asking one further question, what skills or virtues can I employ towards conducive growth, your life will fucking change. And it'll be for the better. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of Lifelong Learning, where we distill philosophy, psychology, and self-development into actionable steps to live a happier life. Feel free to check me out on Twitter, Threads, Instagram, my blog post, newsletter, all that stuff linked down below. Thank you so much for listening. Stay curious. Thank you.